Okay, so again, our topic would be on revenue recognition. If you're looking at your study guide class, it would help if you find time to go over everything that is stated in your study guide. Okay, but if there's one thing that can be asked from this topic class, you can only remember one thing, let it be the requirements for the recognition of revenue in a contract. And in your study guide, that's Roman numeral 1B. Okay, the standard requires organizations to recognize revenue using the following steps. Okay, it's important for you to remember these 5 steps. Number 1, identify the contract with the customer. Number 2, identify separate performance obligations in the contract. And number 3, determine the transaction price. Number 4, allocate the transaction price to the performance obligations identified in the contract. And number 5, recognize revenue for each performance obligation. And this should not even be difficult to remember this. Okay, you can just start with the action words. Number 1 and 2 are identify. Number 3 is determine. Number 4, allocate. And number 5 is recognize. Again, identify, determine, allocate, and recognize. What's the first thing are you supposed to identify? Identify the contract. Second thing you are to identify performance obligations. Number 3 is determine, and what are you going to determine? Determine the transaction price. Number 4, allocate the transaction price. Number 5, recognize the revenue. Again, this should not be difficult to remember. What are the 5 steps? Number 1, identify. Number 2, identify. Number 3, determine. Number 4, allocate. And number 5, recognize. The first identify is what? Identify the contract. The second identify is to identify the performance obligation. And number 3, determine the transaction price. Number 4, what are you going to allocate? Allocate the transaction price. And number 5, what are you going to recognize? Your revenue, which is essentially our topic. Okay, to recognize revenue. And all the other words there, class, can just be supplied by you by your understanding these steps. Okay, first, identify. Identify what? Contract. Contract with whom? Contract with the customer. Number 2, identify separate performance obligations from the contract. So the word contract here is also recurring. Okay, the same for transaction price is recurring for steps 3 and step 4. But if you are going to expand our step 4 class, allocate the, what are you going to allocate? The transaction price of the what? The transaction price to the performance obligations which you have identified in the contract. And number 5, recognize revenue from each performance obligation. Okay, and performance obligation here is repeated 3 times in step 2, step 4, and step 5. Okay, but again, identify, determine, allocate, and recognize. Okay. So this could be asked as an essay question. You will be asked what are the steps in recognizing revenue. And in each of these step class, there will be sub-discussion, which would also be important concept in answering multiple choice questions. I do not expect you to be asked what are the 5 steps and explain each step. Okay, because in our exam that would be too much for just 3 points. 3 points. Okay, but I'm thinking that would be a possible question in the actual CMA examination. Okay, not just what are the steps, but you could also be asked to briefly explain each step. So if we go to the first step class, identify the contract with the customer. We're still on your study guide. Quickly go over the A, B, C, and D there, class, because this could be good source for a multiple choice question. For example, for letter A, What would be our takeaway there for letter A? Again, we are in the identifying the contract with the customer class. What would be an important takeaway under letter A? That the contract need not be written. What does letter A say there? That the contract must be approved by all the parties and can be written, oral, or even implied by normal business practice. Okay? So there will be questions, class, asking you that can the arrangement be considered as a contract for the purpose of recognizing revenue, even though it is not written? And the answer is yes. Okay, letter B, relevant rights and obligations of each party are clear. Letter C, the contract has commercial substance. Go to letter D, there will be questions asked under letter D. If each party has the unilateral right to terminate the contract without compensating the other party, then the conclusion there is that no contract exists. Okay? At that point, no contract exists. But later on, a contract may be recognized if the entity has already transferred goods or services, or the entity has already received or is entitled to receive consideration for goods or services. But again, very important, class, if both parties have the right to terminate the contract without compensating the other party, meaning you can back out from the contract without having to pay a penalty, then you cannot say that there is already a contract. Okay, and number two there, if collectability of substantially all of the consideration for goods or services is not probable, then also no contract exists. Very important considerations here. Okay, so again, the first step is to identify the contract. So in that step, it may result in the conclusion that no contract exists if any of the parties can simply back out of the contract and there is no the collectability of the consideration of almost all of the consideration is not probable. Okay, because if you will not be receiving anything from the contract, then there's no contract to speak of. Then if we go to very little issues with identifying performance obligations. Here, there's one thing I want you to remember, class, for identifying separate performance obligations. This will be subject of several questions. Determining materiality, class. Okay. If you go to letter D, Roman numeral 3, organizations are not required to identify separate performance obligations that are immaterial. Okay? Again, supposedly you are going to identify separate performance obligations, meaning one contract may have several performance obligations. And if a contract is severable, if it has several performance obligations which you can satisfy separately, then they will have to be recognized separately as well. But if you go to letter D, it emphasizes that organizations are not required to identify separate performance obligations that are immaterial. So there will now be a question, what then will constitute immaterial? Okay, and on what level are you going to determine materiality? Okay, and again, very important to absorb, class. Materiality for this purpose is determined by reference to the individual contract and not the organization as a whole. Again, very important takeaway. Materiality is on an individual contract level and not on organizational wide level. Okay, very important takeaway. Then for determining the transaction price, class, if you go to letter C, if the contract contains a provision for variable consideration, the organization must estimate the amount of consideration it expects to receive under the contract. And if there are discounts, then they must be deducted in determining your transaction price. But again, another important takeaway, class, is the treatment of your rebates. That's number 3 under letter C. Okay, what's the treatment for rebates? Again, if you have one takeaway for determining the transaction price, let it be rebates class. What's the rule for rebates? Generally considered a reduction of the initial transaction price. So if you will be giving rebates to your customer, then that would decrease the transaction price. Okay, because if part of your obligation is to give a rebate, then basically that's just another form of discount. Okay, but the takeaway here is this one. However, if the rebate is given in return for something from the customer, the rebate would not impact the transaction price. So rebate generally would be a deduction to your transaction price, but if the grant of rebate is onerous, if you would be getting something from the customer in exchange for the rebate, then that will no longer be a deduction to the transaction price. Okay, since there is already an exchange of equivalent value, the rebate will no longer be treated as a deduction to your transaction price. So what then would be the treatment of the rebate if it is in return for something from the customer? Okay, the rebate now would not be deduction to your transaction price, but since you would be giving something also to the customer, the exchange would be recorded as an expense. Very important. Rebates, deduction to your transaction price, but if it is given in return for something from the customer, then it would be recorded as an expense. Very important takeaway. We'll discuss the allocation of the transaction price as we answer the multiple choice questions. But make sure to go over the examples given in the study guide. For the last step, recognize revenue for each performance obligation. Here you will have to determine whether the recognition will be over a period of time or in a point of time. Okay? And if it is over a period of time, you have 2 options or 2 methods, the output method and the input method. Okay, but again, we'll discuss more on this as we answer the problems. But one thing I want you to give attention, class, will be on revenue that would be recognized at a point in time. That's letter E under Roman numeral 5. 6. If the transfer of control does not happen over time, revenue is recognized at a point in time. Okay, the following are some factors that may indicate. So please make sure to be familiar with these 5. So if the entity has an enforceable right to payment, that would be an indicator that the revenue will be recognized at a point in time. The title to the asset has already transferred to the customer. Physical possession of the asset has already transferred to the customer. And risk and rewards of ownership have already transferred to the customer. And last, the customer has formally accepted the good or service. At this point, you may already recognize the revenue in full. Okay, but again, we will go back to this one as we answer the multiple choice questions. Let's proceed to your practice questions. Are you there? Number 1, which of the following would prevent a company from concluding that a contract exists for the purpose of recognizing revenue? Would prevent. Okay. Letter A, both the buyer and seller have the right to unilaterally cancel the contract without compensating the other party. If this condition exists, can we say that there is already a contract clause? No. So already this would be the answer in number 1. Letter B, the selling price changes based on the amount ordered. The variability of the price clause will not affect the existence of the contract. Letter C, the seller concludes it is probable that substantially all the contract price will be collected sometime after the contract is signed. this is not an issue, class, so long as it can be collected. Okay, it does not matter that collection will happen after contract signing, and that is actually common. Okay, so the issue there is if there will be no, if you are of the opinion that collection of substantially all is not probable at any point, then there should be no contract. But here, collectability is probable. It's just the issue is just that it will happen after the contract signing. But again, that is not a bar from concluding that the contract exists. Letter D, the buyer has the right to return some or all of the product purchase. Again, that is not an issue. So again, the answer number 1 is letter A. Number 2, this is a relatively easy question, class. The company sells outdoor recreational supplies and equipment to wholesale and retail customers. Products sold to the wholesale customers are shipped FOB destination. That's why is the shipping term relevant? Because it tells you when the title over the goods transfers. And why does it matter as to when the title over the goods transfers, class? Because it will tell us whether we have already earned the revenue. It will tell us whether we have already delivered our performance obligation. Okay, what does it mean if it's shipped FOB destination, class? Title will transfer only when it is already received by the customer. Once it reaches its destination. What's the opposite of your FOB destination, class? FOB shipping point. And under FOB shipping point, the moment it is shipped, title over the goods is already transferred. So on the part of the seller, you may already recognize the revenue. Okay. So here we are given with 5 different transactions, class. And we are trying to determine how much are we going to report as revenue on year X1. Okay. Let's start with the in-store sales. For your in-store sales, class, the moment that they are sold, automatically these are good as sold. A title will immediately transfer for in-store sales. So definitely the 65,000 here will be part of your revenue. Okay, and that is actually letter A. But we cannot say that the answer is already letter A because we will have to go over the other items. Let's just start from the bottom going up. Wholesale products on consignment. Okay, as you should recall in your intermediate accounting class, in your topics in your topic on inventory, are goods out on consignment considered sold, class? The moment they are given to your consignees, are they considered sold? The answer is no. The arrangement under consignment is you continue to be the owner of the goods. If it is not sold, it is even going to be returned to you. So the risk and rewards over these goods still remain with the consignor. So even if the goods are out to your consignees, this would not be considered sold yet. So goods that are on consignment will not be part of your revenues yet. Okay, they will only be part of your revenues once they are already sold. So the 10,000 will not be included in your answer. Now you have products shipped on January 1 of the second year. It was only shipped, class, after the reporting period. Will that form part of our revenue for the first year? The answer is no. Okay, so the 500 there will not be part of your answer. Next, wholesale products shipped December 31, but received January the following year. Will that be part of your revenue? The answer is no, because again, the shipping terms is FOB destination. Since it was received only on January 3, by December 31, we remain to be the owners of these goods, meaning title has not yet passed, so no revenue can be recognized. So the 75,000 will not be part of your revenues for year X1. Next, product shipped on November 20. Okay, but again, the shipping date is not the important date here. What's the important date here? If it is FOB destination, it is the date in which it was received. And when was the shipment received? It was received on December 31. Since it was received by the customer within the year, and the term is FOB destination, then the 40,000 would already be part of our revenues for year X1. So our answer here will be composed of the 65,000 in-store sales and the 40,000 shipment that was received by the customer on December 31. So the answer here would be 105,000. What if we change it, class? Instead of FOB destination, we change it to FOB shipping point. Okay, let's determine what would be our answer. First, in-store sales, would that still form part of your revenues? Definitely. Okay, 65,000 will still be included. Goods out on consignment, still not included because they are not yet sold. Okay, they are just in the hands of your resellers. They are just in the hands of your consignors. Now, FOB shipping point, goods or the title over the goods will transfer the moment they are shipped. How about the 500 here? The products that were shipped on January 1, X2. Will this already form part of our revenues for year X1? The answer is no, because it was not yet shipped during X1. When was it shipped? Only the following year. So whether FOB destination or FOB shipping point, the 500 will not be part of our answer. But if we change the shipping term to shipping point, both the 75,000 and the 40,000 plus will already be part of our answer. Why will the 75,000 be included in our revenues for year X1? Because it was shipped also on year X1. Okay? So if we change FOB destination to FOB shipping point, our answer would be letter C, 180,000. But the problem is, the answer would be 105,000. Let's proceed to number 3. On October 1, 20X2, FGH, a newly formed insurance company, received 120,000 in cash from customers for 12-month insurance policies that take effect on November 1, 20X2. What amount should the company report in its 20X2 income statement? Okay, so here, because the recognition of revenue here would be over a period of time, not at a point of time. So even if you received already the 120,000, you will not recognize the entire 120,000 as revenue outright. It has to be spread out over the period in which you will be providing the service. And for how long will you be providing service, class? In exchange of the 120,000, you will be providing insurance coverage for a period of 12 months. Okay? So if you convert this in a monthly figure, class, every month you will have a revenue of 10,000. The question now is, when do you start recognizing revenue? Do you start recognizing revenue on October, or do you start recognizing revenue on November? Only on November, because the insurance policy takes effect on that day. So even if you received it in October 1, class, revenue will only you will only start to recognize revenue on November. And since we are reporting for 20X2, how many months of service is this good for, class? 2 months, November and December. So the answer here would simply be 20,000. Number 4, the UAM company sells 3 distinct products. So you're given with a basket price, class. You're given with a, how is it described? You're given with one single transaction price for 3 products, class. Okay. So as you can recall in your intermediate accounting, if you're given with a basket price, you are going to allocate the price. You will be allocating the transaction price. And normally, if you can remember in your property, plant, and equipment, you have a single price for both land and building. You will allocate the price, the cost between the cost of the land and the building based on the respective fair values. And basically, that is the concept that will be used here. Okay, but the problem with this problem class number 4 is that one of the three products does not have an available price. Okay, but before we go there, very important concept to remember, class. Again, we're supposed to make an allocation, and the allocation will be based on their fair value. The question now would be, what fair value are you going to use? As a rule, class, as a first rule, use the observable standalone price. Okay, you use your observable standalone price. If that's not available, you can use adjusted market price or cost plus profit price. Okay, but as a rule, the first priority would be observable standalone prices. Okay, and that's actually given in the problem. Our issue now is we have observable standalone price for product 1 and 2. We do not have an observable standalone price for product 3. In this case, what do we do? Only for product 3, you use the adjusted market price or the other price that is available. So in making our fractions class, I suggest that we use fractions in this one. Instead of converting everything into percentages, let's just use fraction. In determining our fraction class, only for product 3, you will be using its market price. For product 1 and 2, use the observable standalone price. So meaning for product 1, use 500. For product 2, use 900. For product 3, use 400. Okay, and once you have those three, you add them plus 500 plus 900 plus 400 will give you a total of 1,800. And that would be the sort of total fair value of the 3. And we will be using the 1,800 as our denominator. And the numerator for each one of them will just be the respected standalone prices. Except for product 3, we will be using 400. Okay, so if we recap our fractions class, what fractions are we going to use for product 1? 500 over 1,800. For product 2, what fraction are we going to use? 900 over 1,800. For product 3, what fraction are we going to use? 400 divided by 1,800. And what are we going to use with this? What are we going to do with this fractions class? Multiply them with the transaction price for us to be able to allocate the transaction price. Okay, and how much is the transaction price in this problem? 1,710. Please help me with multiplying here. First, for product 1, 1,710 multiplied by 500 over 1/8. 475. And with that, we don't even have to solve the other choices. Okay, only one choice is 475. But for the sake of practice class, solve for product 2. What are we going to do to determine product 2? 1,710 times 900 over 1/8, or that's simply 1/2. So that would be 855. Okay. For product 3, what fraction are we going to use for product 3? 400 divided by 1,800, multiply that with 1,710. Hopefully that is 380. So again, the answer for number 4 is letter B. Let's proceed to number 5. The company has the following independent scenarios with established customers. Scenario number 1, sales agreement is not written. Is that a bar from having a contract clause? Just because it is oral doesn't mean we cannot conclude that there exists a contract. The answer is no. Again, as emphasized earlier, it may be oral, written, or even simply implied. Second, both parties can terminate the written agreement without penalty until delivery. Okay, so if we can back out without penalty, that would stop us from having a contract. So number 2 would not give us a contract. Okay, because the question here is which scenario or scenarios are contracts for revenue recognition purposes. Number 3, customers has always paid on time, but currently is experiencing significant financial stress and probability of payment is questionable. Okay, the history does not matter, guys. Okay, no matter how good your relationship is, What matters is the present. Okay, and based on present conditions, collectability of substantially all of the transaction price is not probable. So thus, will that stop us from having a contract for purposes of recognizing revenue? The answer is yes. So out of these three, only one can provide us with a contract. So the answer number 5 is letter A. Letter A. Number 6, Buka Warehousing, a company in the business of buying and selling buildings, bought a building at auction on June 30, year 1 for 1 million. On July 2, year 1, Buka sold it to a AAA rated company for 1,200,000. Title and physical possession of the building have transferred to the purchasing company, and they have formally accepted it. Buka received a cash down payment of 300,000 and a first mortgage note at the market rate of interest for the balance. No additional payments were required until year 2. On September 1, year 1, an independent appraiser valued the building at 1,500,000. On its year 1 income tax return, Buka reported the sale on installment basis. How much gain or loss should Buka recognize in its income statement for the year? Here, even though the collection is an installment class, we will recognize the revenue using, we will recognize it in full. Why? Because the recognition of revenue here will not be over a period of time. It would be recognized at a point in time. Why? Because number 1, we are already entitled to the payment, and we have a strong belief that we'll be able to fully collect even the amount on the mortgage note. How are we able to conclude, class, that we will be able to collect the balance, class? Why can we say that collection is reasonably assured in this problem? Because the problem says that the buyer, the company, is a AAA rated company. Okay, companies that are AAA rated class have good financial standing. Okay, so there's no risk, there's very little risk from us of being unable to make a full collection. And number 2, title to the asset has already transferred. And number 3, physical possession has already transferred as well. And basically, the risk and rewards of ownership have already transferred to the customer. And the same has already been accepted by the customer. So here, we can recognize the revenue the moment that we have already transferred the property. Okay? So how much was the selling price? 1,200,000. And what was the cost of the building to us? It is 1 million. So the gain on the part of the seller is 200,000. So the answer here would simply be letter C. We'll have examples on recognizing revenue over a period of time down the road. Number 7. Basically, this is the same as what we've answered earlier. And again, what's the first price that you should be looking at, class? It should be the observable standalone price. But if one is not available, what will you use? You will use the adjusted market price for that product only. Okay? So, in answering number 7, let's just come up with a fractions, class. What would be the fraction for number 1? First, let's determine our denominator. Our denominator will be the sum of 1,000, 2,200, and 1,800. So our denominator would be 5,000. Okay. So the fraction for product 1 would be 1,000 over 5,000. And then for product 2, that would be 2,200 over 5,000. For product 3, it would be 1,800 divided by 5,000. And then you divide those fractions with the transaction price of 4,500 plus. The answer should be letter D, delta. Delta also. Number 8. All of the following are conditions for recognizing revenue at a point in time under the FASB's revenue recognition standard, except letter A, the customer has formally accepted the goods or service. That's one. Risks and rewards of ownership have transferred to the customer. Yes. Title to the asset transfers to the customer when they pay for the asset in full. No. For us to recognize revenue at a point in time, title to the asset must already be transferred to the customer. So the answer here is letter C. Number 9, the company incurs the following 3 costs related to a product. Which of these costs are expensed at the same time the revenue from selling the product is recognized? Okay, basically an application of matching principle class. Okay, cost number 1, R&D incurred to develop the product. This would not await the recognition of revenue from the product class, because again, what was the rule for research and development cost class? This would be expensed outright. So even without any revenue yet, this would already be expensed. Okay, so this would not be expensed at the same time the revenue from selling the product is recognized. Because at that point, for your research and development, there might not even be a product to speak of. Okay, so number 1 should not be matched to any revenue. It's a period cost. It must be recognized in the period in which it was incurred. Letter number 2, labor costs incurred to build the product. Okay, this would now be associated with the product. In fact, this would be capitalized or included in the cost of the product. And the cost of the product will only be reported as an expense when the product is sold. So definitely this would be reported as an expense, normally as a cost of goods sold at the time the product is sold. Cost number 3, advertising costs incurred to market the product plus marketing costs. Does this await the sale of the product? No, marketing costs are also period costs. They will have to be recognized as an expense in the period in which they are incurred. So the answer for number 9 will just be letter A, cost 2 only. Number 10, all of the following statements concerning performance obligations within a contract are true except letter A, companies are not required to separately identify performance obligations that are not material in the context of the contract. That's correct. Letter B, companies must satisfy all performance obligations in the contract before it can recognize any revenue from the contract. That's false. The reason why we will have to identify the severable parts of the contract is for us to be able to recognize revenue for each full satisfaction of these separate performance obligations. So you do not have to satisfy everything for you to start recognizing revenue. So the answer here is letter B. That means C and D must be true. Companies can satisfy individual performance obligations at a single point in time or over a period of time. That's true. Letter D, a contract having multiple goods and services does not automatically have multiple performance obligations. Okay, that's also true. 11, a company signs a contract to provide 2 separate products to a customer for 500. The products are considered to be separate performance obligations. Product 1 has a standalone price of 450 and product 2 has a standalone price of 150. How should the contract price of 500 be allocated? So basically, this is an easier problem compared to the other questions we've answered on allocation of prices. Why? Because we are only dealing with 2 products and both products have their standalone price. Okay, so what do we do? Come up with your fractions class. What would be our fraction for product 1? 450 divided by 600. For product 2, this would be 150 divided by 600. If you multiply those fractions with the transaction price, how much is the transaction price? 500. So for product 1, 500 times 450 over 600, that will give you 375. For product 2, 500 times 150 over 600, that will give you 125. So the answer number 11 is delta. Number 12, big seller company sells a TV and speaker combination for $510. The TV is delivered immediately and the speakers are shipped to the customer later that week. The TV sells alone for $380 and the speakers sell alone for $190. How much revenue should the seller recognize on the TV when sold as part of the combo? Okay, come up with your fraction class. We're only dealing with TV. What will be the fraction for the TV class? The standalone price is 380. You add that with the 190. Our denominator would be 570. Is it 570? Okay, so 380 divided by 570 multiplied by 510. Your answer will be how much? 340. Answer there is letter C. Okay, so everyone should get it if this comes out in the exam. This should be considered as an easy question. Right? Number 13, net sales are calculated by subtracting. Everyone should be able to answer this one. By subtracting sales, returns, and allowances from your sales revenue. So the answer is letter B. Bravo. Number 14, which of the following statements concerning performance obligations for revenue recognition purposes is not correct? Letter A, materiality of a performance obligation is measured based on an individual contract, not on the organization as a whole. That's correct. Performance obligation must be explicitly stated in a contract. That's not correct because, as what we've mentioned, it can even be implied from the practices of the company. So the answer here is letter B. Letter C is important to take note also, class. Identification of performance obligation is done from the perspective of the customer and not of the seller. 15. Which of the following would not impact the transaction price for revenue recognition purposes? A discount would be deduction. A volume discount also will be deducted. Expected returns also considered. What would be the answer number 15? A rebate given in return for something from the customer. But again, it's possible for rebate to be deduction to the transaction price. But if it is given in return for something from the customer, then that would not be a deduction to the transaction price, but it will be recognized as an expense. 16. Okay, this is now an application of recognizing revenues over a period of time. The company is building a large apartment building for 15 million. The work should take several years and revenue is being recognized over time using the input method. Because if you're using the input method, you will use the cost you have incurred. The entity spends 3 million in year 1 and at that time expects to spend another 7 million to complete the job. In year 2, the entity spends another 2.5 million, but now believes that an additional 5.5 million will have to be spent to finish the work. Plus, your knowledge in construction contracts can be used here. Okay, let's start with year 1. What's the important thing to determine for recognizing revenue here? You determine the percentage of completion. Okay, but we will be using the input method. How much have we incurred in year 1? We have incurred 3 million. And for year 1, how much did we estimate to be the total cost? The total cost would be 10 million. Where did we get 10 million? The 3 million we have already spent and the estimated cost to complete of 7 million. So if cost incurred already is 3 million and cost at completion is 10 million. Our percentage of completion on year 1 is how much? 30%. And what do we do with the 30%? Multiply that with the expected profit from the contract. How much profit are we expecting from the contract? The transaction or the contract price is 15 million and the estimated cost is 10 million. So the total expected profit from the contract on year 1 is 5 million. And we will not recognize the entire 5 million yet because we will recognize revenue over a period of time. So we will use the percentage of completion. How much is our percentage of completion? 30%. That means we have only earned 30% of the profit. So how much then is the 30% of your 5 million? That would be 1,500,000. But that is not the answer because the question is asking for year 2. So for year 2, let's also solve for the percentage of completion. How much is our cost incurred today? How much have we incurred all in all from year 1 and year 2? Year 1, we've spent 3 million. Year 2, we've spent 2.5 million. So far, we have already incurred 5.5 million. Okay, but there is a change now in the estimate. What is that change? Total estimated cost on year 2 class. We now believe that an additional 5.5 million will have to be spent. We have spent 5.5 million already. We will still have to spend 5.5 million. So our total estimated cost now is 11 million. And we will now use the 11 million in getting our percentage of completion. 5.5 million cost incurred today divided by total estimated cost of 11 million. Our percentage of completion at the end of year 2 is at 50%. Okay, that means we have already earned 50% of our total profit. But be careful, class, since the total estimated cost has changed, that means our expected gross profit has also changed. How much was the contract price? 15 million. How much now is our current total estimated cost? 11 million. So that means our expected profit is just 4 million. You multiply the 4 million by 50%, that will give you your cumulative realized profit. How much is 50% of 4 million? 2 million. But again, that is not the answer because the 2 million here is cumulative. How much have you reported in year 1 month? It was 1,500,000. If your cumulative is 2 million and you have already reported 1,500,000, additional revenue to be recognized, additional profit to be recognized in year 2 is only 500,000. Okay, so the answer here is letter B. So I hope some of you are getting flashbacks from your long-term construction contract discussion. 17. When should revenue from sales be recognized? When the product is available for sale? No. What if nobody buys it? Letter B, when the entire amount receivable has been collected? No. Letter D, when management decides it is appropriate to do so? The answer is no. So that means the correct answer here is letter C. None of the choices are correct. Number 18. Plus, take note of number 18. This is somewhat new to you. The company signs a contract with GHY that will run from March 1 through June 30. GHY agrees to purchase a minimum of 100 units from LAL during that time. The selling price for the first 100 units is 200. The selling price for between 101 and 200 units is 180. And any additional units above 200 will be at the price of 160. LAL estimates that there is a 30% chance GHY will purchase 100 units. 50% chance it will purchase 200 units, and a 20% chance it will purchase 250 units. Plus, in determining your transaction price, remember the third step, class. What's the third step? Determine the transaction price. To determine the transaction price, you will have to compute for the weighted average expected sales. So you will have to estimate how much sales are you going to have in this contract. And you do that by using the weighted average method, class. You multiply the percentages with the corresponding volume. Okay? What's the percentage, class, that you will be selling only 100 units? 30%. So it's weighted, weighted volume would be 30 units. That's 30% times 100. Do that also for the 50% and the 20%. Multiply 50% with 200. Multiply 20% with 250. Help me here. 30% of 100 is 30. 50% of 200 is 100. And then 20% of 250 is 50. So that means 30 plus 100 plus 50. Your estimated volume would be 180. Okay, so if your estimated volume is 180, how much will be the total price? Remember that for the first 100, how much is the price for the first 100? $200 per unit. And if it's between 101 and 200, the price would be 180. And since our estimated volume is 80, we will multiply 80 units with 180. How much is 180 times 80 plus? Is it 144? So is it, sorry, how much? 14,400. So 14,400, that's the price of the 80 units. How about for the first 100 units? Is it 20,000? 20,000 or 2,000? 100 times 200, 20,000. So 20,000 plus 14,400, that's a total price of 34,400. So you divide the total price of 34,400 by the estimated volume of 180. How much is 34,400 divided by 180? Answer is letter C. Okay. Make sure to review number 18 Kasaga. You are not familiar with this kind of problem. Again, answer is letter C. Number 19, all of the following statements are correct concerning the relationship between revenue recognition and related expense, except letter A, recognizing the expense of a defined benefit pension plan before a worker retires. Yes, the retirement expense should be recognized as the worker provides service. Letter B, recognizing estimated warranty expense for warranties included in the product at the time the underlying product is sold. Okay, that's correct. Letter C, recognizing the research and development expense that went into the development of the product in the same period as the product is sold. No, again, under US GAAP, development costs will be expensed outright. So answer there is letter C. Of course, cost of goods sold will be recognized at the same period the sales are recognized. Number 20, ABC company is working under a contract where it recognizes revenue over time using the input method of costs expended. The contract is for 500,000 with estimated project cost of 350. After year one, ABC has incurred 70,000 costs. How much revenue can ABC recognize? Just be careful lang in this problem. The question is on revenue and not on profit. When we answered problem 16, the question there was profit. In number 20, the question is on revenue. If it's revenue, no reduction of the cost yet. Okay? But basically, the process will be the same. We will have to solve for the percentage of completion. How much is the percentage of completion? Formula for percentage of completion. Cost incurred to date divided by total estimated cost. How much have we incurred so far? Since this is year one, how much have we incurred in year one? 70,000. Divided by what? Divided by the total estimated cost. How much is the total estimated cost? 350. Are you in problem 20 class? So 70,000 divided by 350 will give you a percentage of completion of how much? 70 divided by 350, 20%. And since we're trying to solve for revenue class, you can just multiply 20% with the contract price. How much is the contract price? 500,000. 500,000 times 20%, the answer here will be 100,000. Answer here is letter B. Plus, if the question was how much profit will be recognized in year one, Will we still be using the 20%? Yes, but instead of multiplying it with the 500,000, we will multiply it with the expected gross profit. How much is the expected gross profit from the contract? Contract price is 500, total estimated cost is 350. That means expected gross profit is 150. You multiply 150 by 20%, you would get 30,000. That would have been the answer number 20 if the question was how much profit will be recognized in year 1. But since the question is revenue, meaning before deduction of the cost, answer there will be 100,000. Number 21, Fillmore Construction has a 5-year construction contract to build 300 miles of highway for $2 million. The estimated total cost to complete the project is 900,000. At the end of year 2, Fillmore, the estimated total cost to complete is 900. During year 1, Fillmore incurred costs of 270 and completed 75 miles of highway. At the end of year 2, Fillmore incurred total cost of 540 and completed a total of 180 miles. How much revenue will Jackson report, assuming the contract does not qualify for revenue recognition over time? So we will not be using the percentage of completion here, class, because the problem tells us the contract does not qualify for revenue recognition. Okay, so the question now is, do we recognize everything in year 1 or do we not have any profit for year 1 and year 2? The answer here is no profit for year 1 and year 2. In this problem, you will only be recognizing the profit once, but it will not be at the start. It will only be after you have completed the project. Since after year 1 and year 2, the project has not yet been completed, no revenue will be recognized for year 1 and year 2. So the answer in number 21 would be 0. Sorry, the answer would be letter B. 0 for year 1 and year 2. Number 22, which of the following is not a step in recognizing revenue under US GAAP? That's what our steps: identify, determine, allocate, and recognize. The problem is we have to determine here. What are we supposed to determine in the class? You're supposed to determine the transaction price. So that means letter A is wrong. So the answer in number 22 is wrong. So does that mean B, C, and D are correct? Yes. Identify performance obligations. This is actually step number 2. Step 1 is letter C, identify that the contract exists. Letter D, determine the transaction price. That's step 3. Again, the answer number 22 is letter A. Number 23, all of the following statements are correct concerning the relationship between revenue recognition and related expense recognition, except delaying the recording of depreciation expense on machines not yet placed into service. That's correct. Depreciation should start only when the asset is in its intended use, location, and condition. Letter B, recognizing the value of vacation time earned by employees when it is earned and not when vacation is taken. That's correct. Letter C, estimating and recognizing budget's expense each period. That's correct. The answer here then must be letter B. Because again, marketing expense must be expensed outright. You do not wait for the product to be sold. Marketing expenses will be recognized as an expense in the period in which it is incurred. 24. Which of the following is correct concerning performance obligations? Performance obligations must be explicitly stated. Is that true, class, or false? False. Again, it can be implied. Letter B, identification of performance obligations is done from the perspective of the seller. That's true. Letter C, a single contract can contain. It must be from the perspective of the customer. That's perspective of the customer. Next, letter C, a single contract can contain multiple performance obligations. That is the true statement. Okay. So the answer here is letter C. Materiality of a performance obligation is measured based on the organization's total sales revenue. No, it should be based on the contract cost, not organization level. 25, Jackson Corporation has a 4-year because the suggested answer for 25 is letter C. But I do not agree. My answer should be letter A. But to justify letter C class, the treatment of the problem class, please go to the fourth sentence class. At the end of year 2, Jackson incurred total costs of 280 and completed a total of 130 miles of highway. Based on my appreciation of this problem, using all the several problems I have answered before, the correct interpretation of this sentence class is that only for year 2, your accomplishment is 280 and 130 miles. This is only for year 2. And if you do that, your answer would be letter A. But since the suggested answer here is letter C, what then would be the interpretation for the fourth sentence? This would mean that when it says Jackson incurred total costs of 280, the problem meant that the 280 class already included the 120 from year 1. Okay? For your answer to be letter C class, your interpretation of the 280 here, since it uses the word total cost, this is already the cost incurred to date, so the 280 already includes the 120. Maybe for our answer to be letter A, it must have used the phrase, during the year, it incurred this much. Okay? And that means the 130 miles of highway on year 2 already includes the 60 miles on year 1. That would be the interpretation class, so that your answer would be letter C. Okay? So make sure to find time to practice this one and arrive at letter C. 26. So since you're using the output method class in getting your percentage of completion, you will be using the output and not the cost. What do we mean? The estimated total cost is 400. In the first year, incurred costs are 200 and the project is 45% complete. Rachel will be recognizing revenue over time. What amount of revenue will Rachel recognize? The company utilizes the following to recognize the revenue. Output method based on percentage completed and input method based on costs incurred. So, based on output method, the percentage of completion is 45%. What do we do with the 45%? Multiply that with, are we solving for revenue or profit? We're solving for revenue. So you multiply 45% with 500. How much is 45% of 500? 225. But if you use input method, you will be using the costs. How much cost have you incurred? 200. 200 divided by 400 is 50%. Multiply 50% by 500, your answer here will be 250. Answer then, number 26 is alpha. 27, how much revenue should the builder recognize in year 2? The builder is expecting to spend 60 million on the project. The project is considered a single performance obligation, and the builder is appropriately uses the input method based on total cost to recognize revenue over time. So just compute year 2. Just compute for the percentage of completion. 12 million plus 6, that will give you 18. That will be your cost incurred today. Divided by total estimated cost of 60, that will give you how much? Is that 30%? 18 divided by 60 plus. Is that 30%? Okay, 30%. You multiply that with your 100 million, that would give you your cumulative revenue. How much is your cumulative revenue? 30% of 100 million, you would get 30 million. But that's cumulative, you have to deduct previous year. Okay, how much was the revenue previous year? Solve for the percentage of completion in year 1. 6 million divided by 60, that's 10%. 10% of 100 million is 10 million. Deduct the 10 million from the 30 million, your answer would be 20 million. And since there are no changes in the total estimated cost class, we could have actually solved this simply by using the 12 million. 12 million divided by 60 million will give you 20%. Multiply 20% by 100 million, you will already get your answer of Bravo, 20 million. 28 is an easy question for you, class. FOB destination, what does it mean if it's FOB destination? Cost of goods sold is recognized for shipment A when the shipment arrives at the buyer. Well, shipment B when the shipment leaves the seller, because shipment B is FOB, shipping point. So the answer number 28 is Bravo. Just solve 29 plus 29 is letter A. Answer is 11 million. Okay, I recorded the discussion for the IFRS differences class. I shared it with your class rep. Just find time to